fellow citizens. At noon today, I sent a message to the Congress about the situation in Korea. We have sent land, sea, and air forces to assist in these operations. We have done this because we know that what is at stake here is nothing less than our national security and the peace of the world.
Claire is an active duty reservist, a female active duty reservist in the Korean conflict. I would assume that makes you fairly unique?
Yes, sir, it does. There weren't too many of us who went from the reserves into onto active duty. The Marine Corps just had a special little something, and the reserve happened to open, and I was available, and so were they, so it worked out real well. It was as close as we could get to the male reservist time. We did have meetings once a week in the evening at that time. Now I think they have it over a week and a month. But when we'd had the drill, we had the classes, and we learned to salute. Learned not to fall over each other when we marched. And once in June, when the men went off to camp, they opened the reserve buildings for us, and we reported every day for 2 weeks for active duty for training. And at the end of that, we were supposed to have had all of the boot camp that we would get. In fact, it was all the boot camp we would get. In July, when the Korean War started, everybody, well, we were Marines. There were waves, there were WACs, there were WAFs, but there were women Marines. And so when they were put on standby, we were put on standby. It shocked a lot of us. But a lot of us really wanted to serve, so we did our duty. Instead of the train coming to the reserve center, the women went to the Union Station, and there was a separate Pullman car waiting for us. The colonel in charge of reservists was there to see us off. Our parents could come, and we were locked in a Pullman car.
You were locked in a Pullman car?
We were locked in a Pullman car. It had 24 berths. There were 23 of us who were eligible to serve. And we would march through the other cars to the diner and back, but and we were put behind the baggage car so that the door could be locked and no one came through our car. It was, I think, not so much for our protection or for the protection of everyone else, but to keep us as a unit. We left on Friday night and got into San Francisco, actually Oakland, on Monday morning. They had to scramble to get the women enough uniforms so that we could each have a uniform to arrive in San Francisco. We left St. Louis in our summer uniforms. We had to pack our winter uniforms and our night clothes and our dungarees, as they used to call them, for on the train, and no civilian clothes, because they did not know at the time what we were going to face. All they could tell us was take as much money as you can. We don't know when you're going to get paid. By the time you get there, we'll know what to do with you. So they put us in a hotel and then had us find our own subs, our own quarters, and paid us subs. So it was almost like a civilian job, except we knew different. The Marines protected us. We were their sisters. And the other services, they knew better than to overstep their, or so it seemed. And the civilians were kind of mixed. They weren't all nice, but they weren't outwardly nasty to us. They might try to ignore us or whatever, but mostly it was positive, especially in San Francisco.
What would you like the public to know about honoring veterans?
I want them to be remembered. I want them to be respected. I want them to get, especially the ones who need help, I want them to get the help they need to fit back into, either go back into service if that's what they were going to do, or to fit in to the civilian life.
Just 2 hours ago, Allied air forces began an attack on military targets in Iraq and Kuwait. These attacks continue as I speak. Ground forces are not engaged. This conflict started August 2nd when the dictator of Iraq invaded a small and helpless neighbor.
How were you serving in like 1989, 1990 before you were deployed over to Desert Storm?
I was with a unit called the 416th Engineer Command. It's stationed in Chicago. So once again, as a female, I was in personnel, so I was doing all the payroll and things of that nature. But when our unit was called up, because it's an Engineer Command, it was in support of the theater in all aspects of what engineers do.
I think that's an important thing for everybody to realize, that in addition to obviously the individuals who are fighting on the front lines or maybe doing an airborne jump at a specific location, there's all of this additional personnel who has to be, I'll call it behind the lines,
Yes.
to make sure that everything's working effectively for those people who are carrying out those objectives of the mission.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly what the 416th does. Yes. And we've got a wonderful video that they provided us, which will give the students a little bit of idea about what it's like to be part of a tech group, the Technical Engineering Command. So let's learn a little bit more about the 416th, and then we'll talk about what it was like to take what you're doing and putting it in the middle of a desert.
Okay.
Let's find out about the 416th.
When you walk through our doors, you know we remember the men and women who make up our mission. We sacrifice and we strive for excellence, for precision, making decisions that serve the needs of our nation. But who are we? Assured mobility, geospatial engineering, horizontal and vertical construction. We oversee a landscape of massive operations. We are the experts of terrain, building airstrips and bases for troops, dropping bridges on call in 3 hours or less. But we also build schoolhouses and medical centers for our international allies and their people in need. But our engineers can not only build, they can fight. They can blow you away. They are the warriors with heart. They have the spirit to stand, to sweat, and to bleed in defense of our nation. We think, we plan, we execute. We are the tech, and we are what our nation needs.
Oh, it was very hot. You know, I don't think you could imagine how hot, because you was out in the middle of a desert. And every night, most of that seems like when everything was really happening. The Scuds was flying over your head. You would see missiles just shoot back and forth. And our thing, as soon as they hit Mop 4, we had to put on our gas mask, a complete mop suit with the gloves, the boots, and then you had to sleep all night like that. You know, just imagine breathing in a gas mask all night, because you don't know what kind of nerve gas or whatever's in the air. So the conditions was not that great, but we had to do the best we could.
I'm glad you mentioned that idea, because the students may not be aware, there was a real fear that Saddam Hussein and the Iraqis were going to use nerve gas or mustard gas or some sort of chemical weapon. So think about just what it would be like to be dressed in this kind of like hazardous chemical suit that you have to wear. You know those people who do hazmat work? And you see them in those big white things. You got some sort of like kind of suit like that on, and then you've got the gas mask on, and I don't know, it's a lovely night in the desert, and you get to sleep in all that, and then the next morning you get to get up again in 114 degrees, do the work that's going to enable the mission to happen.
Absolutely.
Incredible. As you give the students what would be a day like in that theater? What did you get up? What did you do? What happened?
Because I was in support of the theater, so in the personnel office, we still had to do accountability where all the troops were. If there were anything going on back at home, I had to do Red Cross notices and type letters for the general, the commander, or whatever. So as a support person in personnel, we still train. You know, I was NBC qualified, nuclear, biological, chemical qualified, so we gave classes during the day. So there's a lot of things going on. We didn't just sit around. We still had to continue to train ourselves and get ready. So if there were anything that was going to happen, we had to always be ready.
And when you say you are nuclear biological classified, does that mean had there been some sort of nuclear attack or biological attack, you would have been put forward in a different way to do a different kind of job?
Yes, we have to predict the fallouts wherever, we think it would have, if it was been over here, over there, we'd have to predict whatever fallout.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
Ruby Foster is a part of history.
She's 94. She will be 95 in September.
She served our country during World War II.
And they came in, swooped in, and saved the country's healthcare system. They're all in their 90s now.
Ruby Foster was a cadet nurse in the United States Cadet Nurse Corps.
The Cadet Nurse program was a program at the very end of World War II, 1943 to 48, and it was to help with the country's lack of nurses. So many of the nurses were helping with the war efforts that the country's healthcare system nationally was close to collapsing. So President Roosevelt signed in the Bolton Act, which provided for them to recruit 125,000 single 17 to 35-year-old young women and put them through accelerated nursing programs.
The cadet nurses became heroes on the home front.
They were charge nurses in hospitals, and they were doing things that many 17 and 18-year-olds could not do today. So it's really impressive.
There was no way I was going to get any advanced education outside of high school. My dad did not have that kind of money. And when I saw this poster, join the Cadet Nurse Corps, I said, hey, that's for me. Yes, and I did. I was in the last class.
Ruby joined when she was just 16 years old.
Government paid us $10 a month the first year, $15 the second year, and I'm thinking 30 third year, 3 years. This was a 3-year program.
They are the only uniformed Corps members from World War II not recognized as veterans.
When they signed up for the duration of the war, having no idea how long their service would be to the country. It's kind of sad, and I just wish we could figure out a way to make that happen.
Do you consider yourself a veteran?
No, we're not, but we should be.
And a couple of times it's made it through the House or the Senate, and it gets buried in another bill, and it just never has happened.
But she was honored like a veteran thanks to the Greater St. Louis Honor Flight.
It wasn't very long before I got a call from the gentleman, and he said they had looked up the Cadet Nurse. They weren't familiar with it either, and they'd done the research, and that they would be happy to take Ruby, and she would be their first Cadet Nurse to get to go.
Oh, it was good. It was nice. I really enjoyed seeing those monuments, and oh, it's wonderful.
She was also honored at a St. Louis Blues game.
They put her story on the Jumbotron, and then she had a standing ovation. The entire St. Louis Blues Stadium was full. It was a sold-out crowd, and a standing ovation. She stood up and do the little wave, and she had it down pat, and she was just thrilled.
Thrilling is a word Ruby would also use to describe her friendship with Vicki.
Best friend I ever had.
I taught nursing for many years at Lewis and Clark Community College. Some of the nurses just said, you need to go meet this lady that just moved back here. And I went in and started talking to her, and just found out that she was a cadet nurse, and we just had a lot of things in common, and we connected really well.
Vicki also brings her nursing students in to meet Ruby. And there's one piece of advice she imparts on all of the future nurses she meets.
Be good nurses, or get out.
Ruby Foster, a piece of history that helped our country by helping others.